Hi, have your beautiful petunias or geraniums stopped blooming? Or are they full of beautiful blooms and then all of a sudden, boom, no blooms? That's what happened to me. Or have you noticed gnawing in the leaves, jagged holes in the leaves or the buds? If so, you probably have budworms in your plants. Budworms are especially active midsummer to late summer when you have the most blooms on your plants and when your flowers are at their most beautiful. That's when budworms appear. Now is the time that you may start seeing some activity. Also, if you live in a warmer climate or if you have plants that are in a greenhouse, budworms could be troublesome all year round. It's important to act quickly and get rid of the budworms before you have a large infestation and it gets totally out of hand. I'm going to show you how to get rid of the budworms naturally and effectively. So how do you know if you even have budworms? I would say check your plants often, daily if you can. If you water your plants daily, that's a perfect time to check them to make sure that they're healthy and that nothing's going on. You want to look for holes in the leaves, holes in the buds or the flowers, jagged or holes that are not uniform. That's a sign. Definitely, if you see black droppings, these black little pellets on the leaves or on the buds, that's a definite sign of budworm activity. Also, if you notice any webbing around damaged buds, that's also a sign or can be a sign of budworms. I'm going to insert a video that I took 2 years ago when I had budworms in my petunias. That way you can see what a budworm looks like and also what their droppings look like, because once I had no blooms left on my petunias and I went to see what's going on, the first thing that I noticed, the first clue, were the black droppings on the leaves. So I'm going to insert a video. Now, as you're watching the video, look closely and you'll be able to see holes in the leaves, jagged holes in the leaves and the blooms. You'll be able to see the black little droppings, the black pellets on the leaves if you look closely. Once you've determined that you have budworms, the best way to get rid of them naturally is just to put on a pair of gloves and start picking them off. And then once you pick them off, put them in a little dish or a little bucket of soapy water and they'll die. Budworms are nocturnal feeders, so if you're going to be picking them by hand, a tip would be to look for them in the evening when they're the most active. That's when you're going to have the best opportunity to take them off. During the daylight hours, a lot of times they hide right at the base of the plant. However, if you have a bigger infestation of budworms, or if you're noticing that you have budworms in multiple plants, which is what happened to me, all of a sudden they were in multiple pots, then taking them off by hand is impractical. You're going to get frustrated. It's going to take you a long time, and then you're going to continue to see the caterpillars. I wouldn't suggest it. I feel that it's impractical. So if that's the case, then the next option would be to spray with a BT spray. Spraying them with a BT spray, that's the method that I use. BT is a natural bacterium. It's harmless to pets, kids, birds, and pollinators. My favorite BT spray is Captain Jack's spray. It's ready to use, so you don't have to mix it. So you use it just straight out of the bottle. spray as is, so it's super easy. However, it's popular and it sells out quickly and often. So if it's sold out, my second choice is Natural Guard BT spray, which is this one. And this is what I've used. However, this one is, you have to mix it. This one is not ready to use. So it just depends what you want. If it's a little bit of a trouble, it really isn't a trouble, but if it's easier to just use ready to use, I would say Captain Jack's. If Captain Jack's isn't available, or if you don't mind mixing, then this Natural Guard is great. It has worked great for me. I have it still over halfway full, and I've been using it for 2 years, and it's worked well. It's worked great. I'm going to list the BT sprays in the description and everything that you need to use. I'm going to list it in the description, and I'm also going to pin it in the top comment so it's easy to find. The best time to spray the BT spray is in the early evening. Could be late afternoon to early evening. The active ingredient in BT is sensitive to the sun. The UV rays actually break it down. So for it to be the most effective on killing the budworms would be spraying it in the evening. The caterpillars are most active in the early morning, later afternoon, and early evening. If you choose to spray the BT early in the morning, a tip would be just to make sure that there is no dew on the leaves. If there's any kind of water or dew on the leaves, it's going to it's going to diminish the effectiveness of the BT spray. Avoid spraying the plants with the BT spray if rain is forecasted within the next 24 hours. So another tip would be to check the forecast before you spray so you can decide which day would be the best. If rain is in the forecast, don't do it, because if you spray it and then we get a rain, and especially a good rain or a hard rain, it's gonna wash off all of the BT spray that you just put on there, and then you just did that for no reason. So I would say check the forecast and spray whenever rain is not forecasted within the 24 hours. A little bit later in the week or in a few days is fine. BT is considered safe for pollinators, but for myself, as an extra precaution, I always avoid spraying on open blooms, on open flowers. So I will spray the leaves and I avoid the open blooms. And then also spraying in the evening lessens the exposure to the pollinators because they're not as active in the evening. When you spray BT onto the plant, just make sure that you apply it thoroughly from the top of the foliage to the bottom of the foliage. Again, avoiding any open blooms, but you want to spray it thoroughly onto the foliage, because what happens is, and how this works is, when the caterpillar is eating the foliage, then it eats also the BT spray that you sprayed onto that foliage. It digests it and then it dies. And so that's how the BT spray works. I also wanted to go over a few ways that you can try to prevent budworms from getting into your plants in your garden. One way is to plant aromatic plants next to the plants that the budworms like. So you can plant mint, sage, thyme, basil next to any plants that the budworms like, and that will help deter them because they don't like the strong odor that comes from aromatic plants. Some favorite host plants for budworms, plants that the budworms like, are supertunias, petunias, calabroscia, snapdragons, roses, geraniums, verbena, and I'm sure there's more in there that I'm not remembering, but those are the most popular host plants. So if you have any of those and you want to try to prevent budworms from getting in your garden, one way would be is to plant aromatic plants next to those plants. Another way would be to attract birds and other beneficial insects that prey on budworms. because they'll just pick them off right for you. You won't have to do it. So that's another way to try to prevent or control budworms in your garden or in your containers. Also, if you have a vegetable garden, budworms do like peas, tomatoes, cabbage, lettuce. So I would say if you have any of those planted, if you have vegetables planted, keep an eye out for budworms right now, midsummer. And lastly, another way to prevent budworms is if you've already had an infestation in one of your containers, if you've already had an infestation of budworms that you've taken care of, or if you haven't taken care of it, but even if you have, when the season's done and the plant's going dormant, take all the soil out of that container and replant it in completely new soil. Because what'll happen is the budworm will overwinter in the soil. I believe, and I could be wrong about the temperature, I believe if it goes under 20 degrees in the winter, the budworm will die. But let's say it's a plant that you have in a container that every winter you put it in the garage and you've had an infestation of budworms, you definitely want to take all the soil out and put completely new soil in that pot and repot the plant so that you don't have any budworms overwintering in that soil. And if you live in a warmer climate, I would say definitely to do that. And even if you live in a colder climate where it gets under 20 degrees in the winter, just as a precaution, I would just put new soil anyway to make sure that you don't have any budworms overwintering in that pot. Because if they overwinter, they're going to start coming back up the next spring. I had my first issue with budworms 2 years ago when, and I guess coincidentally it just happened at this time. My husband and I, we were having a get together at the house. The plants were looking beautiful. They had so many blooms, my petunias. That's where I noticed the issue first, but they were blooming so beautifully. And 2 days before they get together, all of a sudden, no blooms. And I mean, almost overnight, like absolutely no blooms. And when you're having a get together, you want everything to look beautiful, right? And my plants were looking great, and the get together was outside, and all my pots of petunias, the blooms were gone, and the geraniums were headed down the same direction. So, and it's just really a shame because I water my plants in the summer every evening, almost every evening. And I did notice some holes in the leaves, and I did notice like not uniform and jagged holes at first when I was watering the plants, and I just didn't think anything of it. Then once I noticed that all the blooms were gone and I was checking to see what was going on, that's when I noticed the droppings. And then with the droppings, I was able to research it to find out what was happening. So I hope this is helpful for you to help prevent budworms, but also if you start seeing the signs, then you can take care of it right away and don't ignore it like I did. And then all of a sudden you have no blooms on your beautiful plants. So it's important to take care of it as quickly as possible. Since the issue 2 years ago, I've been using the BT spray on my mostly petunias and geraniums, but I do have snapdragons that I also spray it on. And I've had no issues since then. So it is effective and it does work. I hope that you found this video helpful. And if you feel that someone else could benefit from this information, please share the video. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I send you love and blessings. Until next time.